Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa sallallahu ala rasulillah. I welcome everybody, and inshallah today we're going to have a short lesson about Islam and the African. So inshallah we're going to talk some history today and talk about some of the lives of some of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and speak about some of the African contributions to Islam. One issue here when we talk about matters of race and identity as an African American Muslim, and most of us here are African Muslims here in America, that I advise people to apply the Jackie Robinson principle. What's the Jackie Robinson principle say? What's the Jackie Robinson principle? Who was Jackie Robinson? Yes, brother.
He was a baseball player, the first black baseball player to go into the major leagues.
Yeah, he was the first black baseball player to go into the major leagues. And the Jackie Robinson principle says, Lady Aisha, that if you are black, then you have to be twice as good as everybody else. Do I mean that in an arrogant way? No, what do I mean by that?
That means since people will be going against you, you should try twice as hard as you usually do.
Exactly. Since you know that in this society, and we're not talking about feeling like a victim and feeling like a pity party, okay? But you know, or you should know, that if you are black in this country, some people are going to discriminate against you. And that being so, that we want to be competitive in this society, and we want to excel in this society or wherever else we may be, then we need to do what? Cry that people don't treat us properly? No, focus on what? Being much better than everybody else in what is good. And I don't mean it in an arrogant way. Some people say I'm better, and they mean it by being arrogant. And of course we don't understand that. And for us, not only some of us are African, but also all of us here are Muslim. And is it not the case if you're a Muslim, you're going to encounter discrimination? Doesn't matter what color you are.
No.
In this country, doesn't matter what color you are. If you're a Muslim, you're going to encounter discrimination. So all the more you need to apply, so to speak, the Jackie Robinson principle. You need to do what or be? Yeah, be twice as better. Be twice as good as others. And again, in a humble way. We're not talking about in an arrogant way. Now, with that said, we have to understand religiously that the status of a person is not based upon their color. All right? What is the basis of one person's status over another person's status? Come on, guys. Everybody should answer this. What's the basis?
The color.
Skills.
Your religion, meaning being Muslim, and just being Muslim makes one better than another Muslim? What? Yes?
Their obedience to Allah.
Their obedience to Allah. This is it. To have the right belief. Because for one's deeds to be accepted in the hereafter, the person has to have the proper belief. And then to excel in obedience. And in Islam, how do you get a higher status?
By learning more.
You get a higher status by learning, but as you get a higher status, you are also becoming, inshallah, more humble. You see? And you only can get a higher status in our religion by what? Helping others. If you're trying to harm others, then you're not going to get a higher status. Okay? Meaning harm others unjustly. But you get a higher status by helping others. So for you to go up, you need to help others to what? To also go up. Okay, this is our way to assist each other in the good deeds. And there's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in which he said, "Inna Allah Ta'ala la yanzuru suwarikum wala ila ahsabikum wala amwalikum walakin yanzuru ila qulubikum wa a'malikum." Which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not judge you by your shapes, by your forms. He doesn't judge you by your money, your wealth. But rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judges you by what is in your heart and your deeds. Okay? So, our shape, being tall, does that make someone better than another one? No. Being short, does that make someone better than another? Being thin, does that make someone better than someone who is overweight? No, this is not the basis of what makes a person better. It is by believing in God properly, being a Muslim, that is believing in God properly, believing in the prophets, and doing the good deeds with what?
The good intention.
With the good intention, with the pure intention, that is with sincerity. So this is our basis. So now let's talk about some of the significant Muslim companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who are also African or of a black background. One thing let's mention, that when we talk about race and identity in America, do other places in the world have the same ideas about race and identity as America does? No. If you go down to Cuba, do they have the same idea of race and identity as they have in America? No. What about Mexico? No. What about Brazil? Do they have the same ideas?
No.
No. If you go to Egypt, do they have the same ideas about what makes a person black or white? No. So this is just when we talk about race and identity, we're talking about as it's understood where? In America. And this is very important to understand in giving dawah and also just understanding who you are in this country. So with that said, just to keep that in mind, so when I'm saying someone is black, I mean black by the standards in America. In America, they have what's called the one drop rule. What's the one drop rule? What's it mean? You know?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Brother Khalid.
No, if you have, I guess, one bit of black lineage in you, then you're considered black.
Yes, so like Barack Obama, for example. What is his racial heritage? He's half what? He's half white and half what?
Black.
But they keep calling him what?
Black.
How is that? Logically, how is that? Not only is he half black or half white, he was raised by what?
White.
By white people.
Yeah.
And still they call him what? Black. Okay, that's American thing. Now of course, Islamically, the lineage is taken through the father. So in that sense, he would be considered Kenyan. But also from the way it is in this country, usually the lineage was taken through the mother, right? Weren't there a lot of African slaves that the masters, they had children with their slaves? Yeah. So Islamically, what would that make those children? They would be the children of the slave masters, and they would have the lineage of, they would have the ethnicity of the slave master. You see, there's a very different way of thinking. I mean, in America, that might make people, especially African Americans, uncomfortable hearing that. But in reality, that would make them, whatever, if their slave master was Scottish or British or French, then they would be regarded as Scottish or British or French, for example. Isn't that just itself? Isn't that a radically different way of thinking? Yeah. So just keep this in mind that when we talk about race and identity, I am using it in the American context, and to know and be clear that the American construction of race and identity is relevant in America. It doesn't apply in other places. I mentioned one of the brothers from Harar. We were having a conversation, and he grew up in Canada, but he spent a lot of time in the USA. And he said that it took me years to understand what they meant by like being black in America. Because do you guys, the Hararis, do you guys have the same idea about race and identity? No, it's not the same, mashallah. So just keep that in mind. This is very important for a lot of people, for a lot of African American Muslims or non-Muslims. They are struggling with ideas of race and identity, and it's important that they understand that the way things are in America is not a universal thing. And we're not talking about here being ashamed of your skin color. We're saying that the idea of race as it is in America is not universal. And the people who established this idea of race and identity in America, did they come up with this idea of black identity? Did they do it to empower the black people here? No, they did it for what reason? To keep them what? To keep them in a lower social condition, isn't it? Yeah. So keep that in mind. If you think of, well, who came up with these ideas if somebody's half black and half white, then they're only considered black? Who came up with those ideas and why? And were those ideas meant to empower me, meaning as a black person, or was there another agenda behind it? So this is important that we look at these things critically. Okay, now let's talk about at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. that there were different companions, and the Prophet had companions from different cultures. Not all of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ were exclusively of Arab background. Okay? And even where is Arabia geographically?
Middle
Middle
East.
East.
Middle East, what else about it though?
Near
Next to
Africa.
Asia.
It's next to Africa, and what?
Asia.
Asia.
Well, it's part of Asia. Where else? What else
Russia.
about the Saudi Arabia? About Arabia? It wasn't called Saudi Arabia back then.
Australia.
Isn't it like a crossroad for many different cultures? Yeah. In the south of Arabia, Arabia Felix, meaning Yemen, that area, how far is it from Africa? From Ethiopia, if you wish. Djibouti, isn't it? Okay. 15 miles? 50 miles separate Africa from the southwest corner of Arabia.
Saudi.
What's that?
From Djibouti to Saudi.
Yeah, to Yemen.
Yemen, I'm
To
sorry,
Yemen.
yeah, Yemen.
So, and the people of Yemen, sometimes they would rule there in that region, Habasha,
Right.
Ethiopia. They would rule there in Abyssinia, and sometimes the people of Abyssinia used to rule in Yemen. And those people mixed. So not the way they have in this country. People, like they want you to think of Africa, at least what they call sub-Saharan Africa is for black people, and then what's in the Sahara and above, that's for white people. In reality, people have been mixing, not just between the sub-Saharan Africa and northern Africa, but also between Africa and, for example, Arabia. Those people are mixed. If you go to Yemen, a lot of the Yemeni people, they're mixed with the Ethiopian people. People have mixed. So this idea of like trying to divide the people on these continents as they have it, and the way that they want you to think is largely a European construction. Didn't we say last night that Europe is not a continent in reality? If you think about it, is it really a continent? No, it's all one part, the same what? It's all same landmass, isn't it? Yeah, it's all the same landmass. So why did these people come up with this idea of Europe and then there was Asia? Who are the people of Europe mostly? Christians. And right to the east of Europe, what do you find? Which is Asia, like Western Asia, meaning the east of Europe. Western Asia, who do you find there in Western Asia?
Asia.
The Muslims. Yeah, the Muslims. And many of those Muslims that are in Western Asia, they are as white, as one would say, as the what? Europeans. What do they call the white people? They call them Caucasians, don't they?
Yeah.
Who are the people of the Caucasus Mountains now? What religion do they follow? Most of these people are what? Or many of them are Muslims. Okay? But they try to divide the world to keep people confused. That's why they say, oh, these people only live on this continent. Oh, those people live on this continent. No, people have been moving around and traveling and intermarrying for what? For thousands and thousands of years. So, but this is something that they like to put in people's minds to divide people. And then among all these different cultures and all the different continents and the different cultures, who do they put on top? They put the Australian Aborigines on top. They put the Europeans, they put themselves on top. Okay, this is what we use that term, what? Tricknology. Although the guy was a deviant who came up with that term, but it's a good term. This is all part of tricknology. So now let's talk about some of the great companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The most famous of the companions of an African background of the Prophet, who was the most famous? Bilal. And what's his title? Al-Habashi, Bilal the Ethiopian. And he is one of the first of the companions to embrace Islam. He's one of the first to embrace Islam. He was a slave, and he was owned by a person named Umayyah ibn Khalaf. And when he found out that Bilal had become Muslim, what did he do? He tortured him. How did he torture him?
Did he put him on a rock?
They put big, like, hot boulders on his chest in the sun, in the Arabian sun, not the Memphis sun, in the Arabian sun, where it's what, 110, 115, 120, 125, and just scorching heat. And when he was being tortured, what would he say? Anybody know what he would say? Because they were telling him, leave Islam, come to be a pagan. And he would say, Allah is one. Ahad, 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 When we recite Al-Quran, what do we say? قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. What does that mean? Always in our lessons we usually talk about Tawheed a little bit, right? What does the name of Allah, Al-Ahad, mean? Allah is one. What do we mean when we say Allah is one? Allah has no partners. No one is the creator except Allah. What's another meaning for Al-Ahad? Unique. The one who has no similar. When we say uni means what? One. When we say Allah is unique, we mean that Allah Ta'ala has no similar at all to the creations. And what's another meaning of Al-Ahad?
Indivisible.
Indivisible, non-dividable, meaning not composed of parts, not composed of pieces, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have a size, does not have a shape, does not have dimensions. And we know from that Allah ta'ala is not something that's in space. Before there was space, before there was light, before there was darkness, before there was time, before there was place, there was a creator. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists without being in one place, and we don't say Allah is in all places. We say Allah exists without a place. So when we say Al-Ahad, that's the meaning, that Allah is the one and only God, the one and only creator. No one is the creator except Allah. Allah is unique with no similar whatsoever to the creations. What did Abu Bakr say, the Khalifa? He said, knowing that you are incapable of imagining Allah is knowledge in itself. And attempting to fathom Allah is what? Blasphemy and paganism. Because whatever a person imagines is going to be a creation. Okay? And that Allah Ta'ala is without parts, pieces, or dimensions. All of that is understood when we say Allah is one. Okay? Yes?
What's fathomism?
Fathom meaning imagine. It's beyond Allah Ta'ala. It's not something we can fathom. We cannot imagine Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So Bilal, he was tortured severely, and eventually Abu Bakr, whom we just mentioned, radiyallahu anhu, he is the one who freed freed Bilal, and it was said by Omar and others that that Abu Bakr freed our master Bilal. This is Omar. Who is Omar? The second Khalifa. What did he say about Bilal? He is our what? Master. He said Abu Bakr freed our master, meaning Bilal al-Habashi. And the Prophet ﷺ said about Bilal that paradise longs for Bilal. So he is one of the people who has been promised the Jannah. Not among the 10. There's a famous hadith about the 10. But not only those 10 people were promised paradise by the Prophet ﷺ. There were others. And Bilal al-Habashi, radiyallahu anhu, he was among those who was promised paradise by the Prophet ﷺ. So this is Bilal. And there's much more, but we're keeping the lesson short today. Okay? But there's much more to say about him. Now another among the famous companions of the Prophet of African descent was Sumayya. And who is she known? What is she known? What is she famous for? Lady Sumayya. What is she? She was from Ethiopia. We have Lady Sumayya here, Amrikiya. So tell us, Lady Sumayya, what was our Sayyida, Lady Sumayya, what was she famous for? She was the first to be martyred in this nation. The pagans, they were torturing her and her husband. Husband is Yasser, okay? They were torturing her and her husband, and they were telling her to leave Islam, but she was strong. Not always is your strength going to be in your muscle. It's the real strength is in the what? It's in the heart. Okay, it's in the heart. They were torturing her and torturing her and torturing her, telling her, leave Islam, and she refused, and she stayed steadfast on Islam. And Abu Jahl, the father of ignorance, really wicked man, he killed her. But this was good for her because she became a shahida, and she was the first of the martyrs. Yes.
How about her husband?
And also her husband, Yasir, was also killed. Now then, she and her husband, they had a child, Ammar, and we'll talk about him in a minute, inshallah. So you had Sumayya and her husband, they were both killed. In the early days, when the Prophet ﷺ was calling people to Islam, and some of the people were embracing Islam, very often those people were not from the socially prominent people. Okay? Even now, when you look at most of the people who become Muslim in this country, are they the people from the wealthy families? They tend to be the people from what? From like the poor people, people who may have been in prison. Why do you think that may be the case, that those people become Muslim you often first? Why? Why do you think often a rich person in this country, usually, not always, but often the rich people, the influential people, why is it the case that they are usually not the people who embrace Islam?
Kibble.
They have the kibr, they have the pride. What else?
They think that their money will save them.
This arrogance, this arrogance is kibr, and this thing of believing the money will save them. What is another reason?
They get greedy.
It's this guy. When we're talking about a guy, he's making $120,000 a year.
Social status.
Okay,
Makes
so if
them
he becomes a Muslim and he has a nice job, what might happen?
He'll use that money to help the organization.
He'll get
He'll get
fired.
backlash.
He might get backlash at work. They might even what? Fire. Yeah, he tells them, well, I'm a Muslim now. I need a place to pray. Say, what do you mean? We don't pay you to pray. You see this? So this person, he may see in his mind that Islam is true, but in the back of his mind he's thinking, I'll have to give up all these things. This is no excuse not to accept. But he's worried about his social status. Also, a lot of those people who are relatively well-to-do, they believe in this society. Do you understand? As opposed to somebody who was poor, maybe they went to jail, maybe they were in jail, they weren't even guilty of anything. They know in this country there's a lot of corruption. You see that? And then if they become Muslim in their mind, what am I losing? Nothing. And what am I getting? Everything. I'm getting everything. So this is often, you will find that the first wave of people who will gravitate towards Islam usually are often the people who are like dispossessed, the weak people. They do not have a lot of social power. And that's the case. That's not always the case. And Sumayya and Yasir, they were among people that were dispossessed. They were not strong. They did not have a strong position in the society. And because they didn't have a strong position in the society, that family and others, they were persecuted by the pagans of Mecca. Now there was another famous African companion who was known as the Prophet's second mother. Who was she? She was known as the Prophet's second mother. No. We have Ethiopians here, they should know her. Ayman. Ayman. Her other name, she was also known as Ayman. Not Halima, no. That's someone else. And what's her other name? Baraka. Okay? So Ayman, she was known as the Prophet's. Of course, he only had one mother, literally. Okay? But she was instrumental in the raising of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, what was her story? She had to make the hijrah. What was the hijrah? At that time, during the time of the Prophet, in the early years, for a period, there was a time when it was an obligation upon the Muslims to make the hijrah. They were making the hijrah to where? From Mecca to Medina. And Ayman, while she was on that hijrah, it's multiple hundreds of miles, maybe 300 miles. She had to travel from Mecca to Medina, and she couldn't find anyone to travel with her, so she traveled by herself. And while she was traveling, she was getting overcome by thirst. Well, this is what's going to happen. You're in the desert. It's not like Memphis heat, guys. That desert heat, it immediately pulls the what?
Water.
It pulls the water out of your body. Here, the water, you feel like it just sits on your body, right? The sweat. There, when you go in the desert, you feel the heat. It just pulls the water out of your body.
You would think that they were wearing short sleeve shirts, but they wear long sleeve shirts just to keep them moist inside their body.
Yeah, and you have to protect yourself from the sun. While she was going on this journey, that she heard like the sound of like wings flapping. And then she looked, and then she found a container, and she drank from it. And after she drank from that, she never experienced thirst again. So they would see her making tawaf around the Kaaba in the summer, you know, in the heat of the desert, and she wouldn't feel thirst. And this was something that one of the angels had brought to her to drink from. She was among the awliya of Allah Ta'ala. She was among the awliya of Allah Ta'ala. So this is Ayman. Now Ayman, she had a son. What was her son's name? And he was no. We're talking about Ammar ibn Yasir. That's one. Ammar is one person. Ayman is another person. She had a son. Although maybe now they might say it's a bad name. Usama. Yeah, Usama. She had a son named Usama. So you have Ayman. She had a son named Usama. And Usama became he was appointed as the military commander. And Omar was among the people in the ranks of that army. This was towards the end of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How old was Usama? He was about 19. He was about 19, and he's leading the Muslim army. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam appointed him as the leader. And so this is her son. And Ayman herself, after the Prophet passed, alayhi salatu wassalam, Abu Bakr and Uthman, they used to visit Ayman a lot. Because what is the habit? To visit those people whom the ones you loved. Okay? So they would visit her, and they would cry out of being with her. When they're with her, they're going to remember who? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They know the Prophet loved her and honored her. So they're going to what? Love her and honor her because they love the one whom the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved.
Why do they like go to her salah?
Huh?
How do they go to her salah?
Because because the Prophet loved her. So to take care of the huh?
Like to marry her?
No. But to spend time with those people, and when you see that person that was close to the Prophet and beloved to the Prophet, then sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's going to make you what? Remember the Prophet more, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Don't you, when you see a friend you haven't seen in a long time, don't you say, "Wow, reminds me of the what? The good old days." The good old days, mashallah. Now, among the significant Africans during the time of the Prophet, although he was not a companion, but he converted to Islam. And who was he? Who am I talking about? He was not a companion, but he converted to Islam, and he was an African who converted to Islam. Huh? And Najashi, the Negus meaning the ruler, and Najashi. Ashama. He converted to Islam during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he himself was among the righteous people, among the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can see from the very beginning of this nation, you have Africans who are what? Have prominent roles. Yeah.
But, Brother Ali, when you look at the history, why they don't mention these people very often like the other people? For example, I'm surprising now what I'm learning now.
Alhamdulillah.
To be honest with you, I never heard Ayman.
Yeah.
Never mentioned the name. I never heard, Is that...
Well, you know, in the Muslim world, I mean, as we're talking about it, is it not the case many Muslims are infected by racism? Yeah.
Are they infected or not?
Infected,
Infected,
yeah,
yeah.
they're
Of course,
infected.
yeah.
Yeah, this is not something,
It is.
and a big reason is because, I mean, when you have that attitude, that they're not taking care of, okay, they're not taking care to fight that disease. You know how it is in Saudi and places.
Definitely.
So we're not saying that there isn't racism in the Muslim world. There is,
It is.
there is. We're not trying to hide
I
this.
mean, probably worse than the Americans.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, because they don't even try to hide it. But is this from the religion or is this from their cultures?
I could say probably the culture.
From their cultures, yeah. Does the religion teach this to hate someone because of
No.
their culture, or because of their color? No, no. So this is from the ignorance that has been spread. And you know, usually when people, they are ignorant of one issue, is it just one issue they're ignorant of? It usually spreads to many different subjects. So this is the situation. Okay, so the Nijis, the Najashi, he also embraced Islam during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you have from the very early time, you have Muslims, people of African descent, who were prominent among the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we say Ayman is called what, the Prophet's second mother. So this is right there from the
That's
beginning.
unbelievable.
Yeah, this is right there from the beginning. We mentioned Asmaha. Also, now let's talk about after the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the early, so throughout the Muslim history, the Muslims, after the passing of the Prophet, Islam spreads to the east, to the frontier of China, okay, and to the west end of North Africa. And when the Muslims reach the west end of North Africa, what do? They go north. So if they go north, where are they going? If you're at the west end of Africa and you go north, where are you going to be? Spain. Come on, guys, let's get our geography together. So the Muslims, they went to the western end of Africa. There was nothing left but the Atlantic, and then they went north into Spain. And then some of the Muslims, they also went south into the Sahara, and then what is beneath that? What is south of that? So the Muslims, they went into Africa and into Spain. And in Spain, you had throughout the history, like what they call black Africans, because they try to play this, well, you have people who look like me. If you're from some part of Africa, they say, oh, well, he's not black African. No, the people you find throughout North Africa, Egypt. Don't you find it, if you go to Egypt, don't you find a lot of black-looking people in Egypt? Yeah. They're from ancient times. But they are mixed with the Arabs and all the other people that are mixed there in that area. So you don't have, we don't have the same idea of race and identity in Egypt as you have in America. Same in Morocco. You find lots of brown people. If they were in America 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, would they be on the front of the bus or the back of the bus?
Back.
They'd be on the back of the bus, okay? So you find among the white racists that, well, not even just racist, but how it is in America, which is really racism, that people who are, maybe they are not dark black, but they are black. They would be considered black in America, but if they're in Africa, what do they say about them? They call them Caucasian.
What's Caucasian?
Not really white, but that's how they try this. They can't call them white.
Is it like mixed?
No, Caucasian, the Europeans are regarded as Caucasian. But also the people of India are regarded as Caucasian. But the people of India, some of them are your color, Ahmed, and some of them are dark, many shades darker than I am. Okay? So when the racists, they can't call those people like in Egypt, who are brown, who are part black, African for sure. They can't call them white, so they'll call them what? Caucasian. It's all like to play games, but that same brown person who is in Egypt that they call Caucasian, in America they would call him what? Black. Do you see? Who made this up? This is silly, to try to put people in these categories and then make a line in one place. Oh, you're in this category if you're from that country, but if you live over here, then you're in this category. Why did they do this? To divide people. And as Muslims, we want the people to be together in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't say a person's status is superior based on color. These people built a whole system they call white supremacy, where they went around the earth and they categorized different people and said, okay, these people are more, from their so-called evolutionary theory, these people are more evolved, so they're better than these people, but these people are less evolved than these people. And they built a whole system off of
Around
this.
the world?
Around the world, yes, absolutely. Wherever they went, they put in this system of dividing the people according to their color.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Of course, it is. You see, it doesn't even register in your mind. It's stupid. How can I say I'm better than this person because I have this color, and he doesn't have the color that I have? This is stupid. It is stupid. MashaAllah. Okay, let's read a little bit more, inshallah. So, the people of Spain, some of them were from the Arabs, some of them were from the Berber people. And the Berbers are like the people of North Africa. But also among the Berbers, some of them are like brown colored people, some of them are white looking people, and some of the Berbers are black people. Among the people that were in Spain, some of them came from the region of Senegal, the Senegambia region.
Yeah.
Senegambia is, remember when we have like the West African kids?
Right.
They're from that
Yeah.
region. And they used to rule in Spain. You tell these people, oh yeah, there were black Africans used to rule in Europe. They'll say, oh no, this never happened. I came across a picture, there was a painting from that time. And I forgot the title of it, I can give it next week, inshallah. They were showing in Germany, there was a painting from that time where they called them the Black Moors. They were in Germany and they're in the castle fighting against the Europeans. And it's done from like the 1300s. Yeah. So I mean, you had the Africans that were in Europe. I'm not saying the majority of people in Europe were African, no, but I'm saying that they were there, and a lot of people would not even ever know that people who were black or would be at least considered black in America were in the heartland of Europe. So a lot of people, they don't know this. But through Islam in particular, this is one of the ways that that black people spread into Europe was through because a lot of them were Muslim. Now, in terms of the spreading of Islam in Africa, I mentioned this point here because a lot of times you'll find like some of the black nationalist people, they will try to attack Islam, say, oh, Islam spread by the sword, and they say things. In part, Islam did spread by the sword. We don't deny that. In part, it did. But we talk about that Muslims were warriors and they fought in different places and they spread. The Europeans, how did they spread all over the earth? Through peace, they were giving out flowers? Is that how they spread?
No.
No. They wiped out, they annihilated entire groups of people just because of their color. This guy, his name is Edward Blyden. He was a missionary from the Caribbean. He was a black guy. And he went to Africa and he saw the difference between the Muslim cultures in Africa and the pagan cultures. And you see, like you go into the Muslim villages, they're quiet, they are clean. The Muslims in Africa, they're focusing on what? Learning. You see, studying knowledge. You go to the pagan villages, a lot of them, they're involved in like the idolatry and all this type of stuff. It's loud, it's noisy. The Muslim village is what? Calm and peaceful. He said that after the first conquest of Muslims in North Africa, their religion advanced southward into the continent, not by arms, not by weapons, but by schools and books and mosques and by trade and by intermarriage. When the Muslims went into different regions, what did they do? They married the women of those places. That's what they did. Wa alaikum salam. So they would marry. In this country, did they do that? When the Europeans, they took over areas, they married the native people here? No. If they had children with those native women, they just left those children, didn't they? The children that they had with the Africans, what did they do? Did they take them on? Did they raise them as their own children?
No, they made them slaves, but they gave them a better position as a slave.
But they didn't take them as their own.
No.
Yeah, they didn't take them as their own. One of another person, his name is Leo Africanus. He was originally a Muslim, and then he got captured by the Europeans. And I don't know the detail, did he become a non-Muslim, did he become a Christian, or did he remain a Muslim? I'm not sure. But later, he escaped or he got his freedom from them and he lived as a Muslim. I don't know the detail in that intermediate period. But he wrote about the Muslims of West Africa. And he said, what's reported, he said, in Timbuktu, what is Timbuktu? Yeah, it was a major city of learning in West Africa. He said, in Timbuktu, there are numerous judges, doctors, and clerics, scholars of religion, all receiving good salaries from the king. He pays great respect to men of learning. There is a big demand for books in manuscript, because back then what happened? If you wanted to get a book, it had to be what? Handwritten. And he said they are imported from Barbary. Barbary is the old name, the Berber, the Morocco. And he said more profit is made from books than any other business. And although Timbuktu was part of the Mali Empire, it was very wealthy, but what did they value the most? Books. Isn't this very different from contemporary African American culture? Yeah. You see? But because of the programming being here, and what the programming, Khalas, that's what it was and is, that you find a lot of African Americans, they don't care about learning. But they're the Muslim part of their ancestry, those people coming out of West Africa, and some of those people who were in the region of Timbuktu, they were brought here during what? Slavery. Part of the heritage of the Muslims is what? Learning. When the Muslims spread, what did they do? They built a mosque. After they built the mosque, what did they do? They built a what? School. And then they built a what? Cemetery. So you have a place to worship, a place to learn, and then you're learning about what? Ultimately, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the cemetery, aren't you? So you're there and you're learning the cycle of life. Cemetery, where they bury the people. Yeah. Okay. Let's read a little bit more, inshallah. Now, another famous West African leader was Mansa Musa. And he ruled in what's called the Sudan. Now, the Sudan is not today what they call the Sudan. Sudan means black, the land of blacks. Okay? Sudan now is known as a country in what? Eastern Africa. But really, the Sudan was considered like south of North Africa, or south of the desert. That whole region is called what? Sudan, Bilad al-Sudan, the land of the blacks. But again, it doesn't mean like you'll have these other people say there's like sub-Saharan Africa. Aren't there people who've always lived in the Sahara? Yeah, people don't they travel from south of the Sahara to north of the Sahara?
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't they try to put a certain way that
Both colors they live.
What's that?
The white ones and the black ones in sub-Saharan.
exactly, and the people mix.
Mix.
But they try to make it look like, oh, well, they're black, and the Africans who are black, they live south of the Sahara, and the people who are, then there are the people north of Sahara. These people, there are all kinds of trade routes throughout the Sahara.
There's no boundaries.
There's no boundaries, but why don't they talk about Europe and Asia, Africa and Arabia? Are those really boundaries for people? Didn't the Muslims from Africa go into Spain? Did they say to themselves, oh, we can't go there because that's Europe? No, they went there because it's whatever, 20 miles, 15 miles between Europe and Africa, isn't it? Yeah, so these people travel and been mixing for thousands of years. It's a European idea of how to divide people. This is what they do. So this is their idea to weaken the people. Let's mention about Mansa Musa. He made a Hajj. So he was in Timbuktu region. In order to make Hajj, he had to get across the Sahara, didn't he? Yeah. In 1307. And during his he made the Hajj in 1324. He had 60,000 people in his entourage. And he had 500 servants, each of whom carried a staff of pure gold weighing 6 pounds. And he had 80 camels that bore 24,000 pounds of gold, 12 tons of gold. And he gave it all away. It was reported in the books, the classical books, that he gave it all. He had to borrow money to get back home. Not because they knew he was good for it, as they say. But when he gave it away, and they said that there was a scholar, I don't remember who, a Sunni scholar that we know, I forgot his name, I forgot who it is, that when he was in Cairo, this was 12 years later, the price of gold had deflated, it was still deflated, because he had brought so much gold into the market in Cairo. That was just Cairo. He gave away things all through his trips. And then when he came back to Timbuktu or back to Mali, he brought scholars with him so that they could teach more in that region. So these are the people, this is part of our heritage, mashallah. And I'm saying he's an African Muslim, but the most important thing is he's a Muslim. We're not just praising him because he's an African, but a lot of times people don't know this, so that's why we're mentioning this. Yes, brother?
Is Mansa Musa the prophet?
No. Mansa was a title that was used by those rulers of West Africa. Like you have Caesars, okay, you have presidents, you have czars, different titles for rulers. Mansa was the title of that ruler. He lived a long time after Prophet Musa, alayhi salam. Okay, mashallah, good. I should have clarified that. So these are some examples, and we're gonna keep it short today, mashallah. But these are nice things to know. Maybe in the future we'll go into details, inshallah. Walhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala rasulillah. We can stop.